I can never have love. And if I can't have love, why live? And in that moment, this energy came flooding down through my crown out of nowhere with the words, "But I love you." This was so incredible and so wonderful. And the fact that I could feel it kinesthetically in my body made it so real to me that I couldn't deny it. That turned me into, what was this? That's what turned me from an engineer, from a skeptic to a seeker. I like to say, and this is symbolically how it felt to me, was I was lifted out of the abyss of despair, and set gently on my path and shown my wings. And the message was, when you have wings, you need never fear an abyss.
Hello, beautiful souls. It is Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into today's podcast, I do have a small request from my heart. If our conversations ever resonate with you or have supported you on your journey, please subscribe to our channel or like this video. It helps us grow Sacred You, welcome more powerful voices into this space, and keep you connected to everything we share. Thank you for walking this path with us. Let us begin with today's conversation.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Pathways to Wellbeing with Sacred You. I am your host, Tywanah Evette, also known by my native name, Thunderbird Rising, and I have the beautiful, wait till you guys hear about this woman. I have the honor, the privilege to speak with Gail today, and there is so much that she has, so much value, so many things. So I'm not going to take her introduction from her. I'm going to allow her to do that, but I am going to say this. Gail, you're an engineer, author, speaker, healer who spent 20 years in successful engineering career. And wow, what a switch. Before a profound personal crisis led you into more than 25 years of energy healing. If that's not amazing, I don't know what is. It's fascinating. So tell us about yourself, and please, by all means, share what was this shift that made you go from something so technical and science-backed to energy healing.
As you can imagine, it had to be big. I was in my engineering phase. I was an agnostic. So I had zero spiritual beliefs. I was actually allergic to religion because of all the history of religion, especially how it handled women. And I was a feminist coming out of the womb, determined to demonstrate the equality of women. And that wasn't my main purpose, but it's what I came out with in this sort of state. Right. So what happened to me was I spent 20 years in that left brain logical engineering mindset and problem solve. I did well in my career. I really enjoyed it. And I had this relationship with a man whom I dearly loved. And we had been together 4 years and talking about marriage, buying a home, marriage, kids, the whole thing. And I, of course, in my mind, it was also going to be a career too. And I had this sort of future plotted out in my mind of, yeah, we'll have the little house and we'll have the minivan and we'll have the dog and the 2.5 kids. The 2.5, that's the engineer speaking. And so I had a shock when I discovered that he was cheating on me. And it's the man I'd committed to in my heart. And so it broke my heart. And I went in, we were sharing my home, my apartment. And when it took me a couple of days to realize I had a say in the matter, at first it was like, what's he going to decide? And that's how I'd fallen into my role and all of that stuff. And there was a little bit of, how would we put it? He was a bit of a narcissist, but I was not aware of those terms in that time of my life. It was just him in my mind. And later I learned he was one of those, what do they call them? It'll come to me. Anyway, people who make you out to be wrong for everything. And there's another term for it. It'll come to me, but it's gaslighter. That's the term.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. And so my self-esteem, unbeknownst to me, it has slowly been pounded. And I became, by that time, I was a bit of a doormat. Anytime he'd threatened to leave, I would say, oh, don't leave. And then I would change myself as much as possible to try and make things better. But it seemed that he needed to maintain control, and to do that he had to be not happy with anything I did. That was his lever. I didn't know any of that at that time. I was totally innocent about energy dynamics or human relationships in those 4 subtle ways, but I did experience it. And so this shocked me so much. Now suddenly I discovered that he was not the person I thought he was. Took me a couple of days to realize I can't continue this relationship. I was almost falling back on the thing, what do I have to change in me? And it was just living without waiting for him to make a decision. I realized I can't stand this. I can't live like this. There was a very strong inner part of me that was saying, this is not okay. And this has to end. And so I kicked him out. And all during our relationship, he had used as a threat that if he was unhappy in a relationship with me, his friend, whom he called Iron Man John, because he was into Iron Man competitions, had offered him his spare room to move into things. And so he would wave that over as a threat or as a club. And then, of course, I'd say, oh, no, don't go. So when I broke the news to him, I said, I want you to move in with your friend Iron Man John on Monday. And he was shocked. He didn't expect me to actually stand up for myself. And
they never do.
He thought I was going to put up with this. And I said, no, you have to move out. You can't live with me if you're going to be doing that. And I can't believe you're being so hard. And actually, I told him on a chairlift. We had scheduled to go skiing, and there we were on a chairlift high up above the ground. And I told him. And then the rest of the day, I skied by myself, and I was going through ups and downs of alternating between I'm free, and the other part that was saying, what have I done? What have I done? I've thrown away my life. And so I was going through this pendulum of my soul was free, and it was because it saw me slowly getting smaller and smaller. But the part that was programmed was aghast. And so after he moved out, I went through a period of mourning and grieving. And also all my stuff came up, all the father wounds, all the betrayal stuff. Also my brother, whom I get along with fine now, but when I was a kid, we were arch enemies. So there was always betrayal going on there. So all of that, I didn't know any of that stuff. I'd done no self-improvement work at all. Personal growth work at all. I was complete newbie to all that stuff. And I just suffered. I just fell into this deep abyss of despair. I fell into oh my God, what have I done? But I can't go back. And the thought was, he was the one that I'd committed my heart to. I thought that there's a one time in your life you find the one. And so this was gone. And I thought I'll never find love again. And then all the self-loathing, all the patterns of low self-esteem rose up and amplified. And every time I thought that, they went deeper, right? So I was driving myself into this negative spiral, and to the point where I basically came to the point where I realized or thought, I can never have love. And if I can't have love, why live? And it was like I gave up on life in that moment. I just surrendered, gave up on life. It's like I splatted on the bottom of the abyss. And in that moment, this energy came flooding down through my crown out of nowhere with the words, but I love you. And the energy coursed down my whole body from the crown. It was goldeny pink light, coursed down from my crown down through my whole body, touching every fiber of my being, every cell of my being, my body, every fiber of my being was loved infinitely. It was I'd never experienced anything like that ever. And it was so vast, at the same time, so intimate. It was personal. It knew me personally and loved me anyway. Even my flaws were lovable. And I'd never experienced this. And then, of course, I went into an expanded state in this high frequency. And it was like I was seeing Earth from a distance or from space and feeling such infinite love for Earth and all the people on it. And I realized this was a message not just for me, but for all of us, that we're all infinitely loved. And it took me, I had no frame of reference for this. Remember, I was this left brain logical agnostic engineer like this towards religion, even any of that stuff. But this was so incredible and so wonderful and the fact that I could feel it kinesthetically in my body made it so real to me that I couldn't deny it. But I had no way to explain it or even understand it from my current reference point. And so that turned me into, what was this? That's what turned me from an engineer from a skeptic to a seeker, because it was such an incredible, and it saved my life because I was consciously thinking about ending it when this message came in. And then suddenly it said, when I was saying, if I can't have love, why live? It was like, here you go.
Exactly.
You can have love, and you do have love, whether you know it or not. And wow. And then I like to say, and this is symbolically how it felt to me, was I was lifted out of the abyss of despair and set gently on my path and shown my wings. And the message was, when you have wings, you need never fear an abyss.
No.
And it took me years to understand that and realize, what are these wings? And the wings were my sacred free will, my open, loving heart, and my co-creative consciousness.
Wow, I love that. That's such a powerful comeback, as I call it. I too experienced I had a very similar experience 4 years ago, 4.5, almost 5 years ago, where I had met a gentleman. Basically, I was staying at his house all the time. So you might as well say we moved in together. Half my things were there. And he was so insidious with his abuse that I didn't know I was being abused. So I questioned myself. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And it did get to the point to where I did try to end my life. But my ancestors were waiting for me on the other side with my angels and told me, no, you have to go back. Wow. So I really, in my heart space, felt your story and your major point that got you to where you are. And let me just say, I'm very glad that the divine spoke to you before you got to the point that I did.
Yes.
And that's the divine spoke through you, not just to you, but through you. And I'm grateful you're here.
Oh,
so
me too.
Many people you work with feel stretched thin, overwhelmed, and emotionally exhausted, like most of the world, right?
Yeah.
From an energy perspective, what's actually happening beneath the surface?
The key thing that's happening is they've lost touch with themselves. Yes. So they've turned externally for everything, for guidance, for good feelings, for all of this stuff. And they've lost touch with the source of their own being within, the light within, which is nourishing. And as soon as you connect in with it, like all of that stuff just evaporates. It's like, in a second. And most people think it takes 20 years of therapy to be able to change your mind. And that's it. No, you just need to connect with the truth within and the light within. And granted, it's not, I've been trained to do that. So I know how to do that. And I also had this wonderful experience that I could reach for. And every day I say, thank you. I thank God and Spirit for that experience. And I keep it fresh in my mind by reliving it and thanking it. And that regenerates me and also reminds me of the importance of that message. And that's part of why I'm here, is to bring that through. And but I also went to energy school. So my journey took me from engineering in that seeking period. I didn't know anything about healing or any of that stuff. I had no frame of reference for what had just happened. It was completely new to me, and I just didn't know how to approach it. And my engineer mind wanted to have a logical explanation. And it just doesn't fit in that. The explanation, there is an explanation, but it requires a much bigger worldview. And this was the beginning of opening to that worldview, realizing there's, whoa, there's something more to reality than what I thought. And in those days, I was in the 80s. So the internet wasn't really a thing then. And so we went to books and that sort of thing. And so I thought, it sounds a bit like a near-death experience or something. Maybe I'll read books on that. And then I had one or two friends who were a bit more open, and they steered me to some things like the Seth material, which talks all about parallel universes. And I would never have read a channeled book in my life before. That was just too weird. But now I was interested. I thought, I'll suspend my disbelief until I've read it and then decide whether I accept it or not. And it took me a whole year to read Seth Speaks or the Seth material. I'm not sure which one, which is just a paperback, right? A little thin paperback. But every paragraph was so full of information, mind-boggling, that I had to put it down for a minute and go, whoa, and let it sit. Exactly. And The Nature of Personal Reality was another one of her titles and the Seth titles. And as I was reading it, I felt all these little connections happening in my brain. It's as if I had one, and that was the feeling, even though I had never experienced this or read anything about this before in my life. When I read it, it was like, I know this.
Yes.
And I didn't know how I knew it, but it was like, yeah, it's like remembering it.
That's what I was about to say. It's a remembrance.
Yeah. And so a lot of this I didn't really fully put together, integrate till later, but it was about a 7-year journey of reading, that sort of thing. And then I got also to read books by Wayne Dyer and
I love Wayne Dyer.
Yeah, he's so practical. I love him. All those earlier books were really helpful to me, pulling your own strings and that sort of thing. And so I was being educated to the nature of reality and that we actually have some control in it. And so I also began with Louise Hay's books, reading about the metaphysical causes of illness and that sort of thing. Yes. So
we like
I realized,
people.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And so by that time, after 7 years of this, I realized I have never healed my broken heart. I've investigated and did a lot of reading and stuff, but I've never done anything. My heart's still broken. And I was avoiding relationships as a result because I was too hurt. Or I had relationships, but they never went anywhere because I wasn't open to them. I was trying to make it better with having other relationships, but my heart wasn't in it. And I realized at that point, having read that far, I realized if I'm not careful, I better deal with this, because if not, I'm going to start facing some problems, physical problems. And so that started me on the next shift, which was healing, being healed. And so I was looking, and it was an emotional wound. How do you heal emotional wounds? And
exactly.
Like I can understand physical wounds, but emotional wounds. And I happened to be living and working in Germany at the time. I went into a bookstore that had a good selection of English books. And I was looking for a book to help me figure out how to do the books, of course, is where I went. That's where I went. If it had been internet, I would have been surfing the internet. So I was looking for a book on how do you heal emotions.
But for us, we had the Encyclopedia Britannica and the Webster's 1891 Dictionary and Thesaurus. This information was not available.
That was it. Exactly. So as I was looking at this bookshelf, a staff member from the store came in and they had a new shipment of books and they were putting them into the shelf, and they put one right in front of my nose. And the title of the book was The Healing of Emotions. I think this one's for me.
The divine led you right to it.
It led me right to it. And it's interestingly enough, it was by Chris Griscom, who is not well known. She's American, but she's not well known in the US. She's beloved in Europe, especially in countries like Germany and that sort of thing. And she was made famous over there by the work of Shirley MacLaine, Out on a Limb, Dancing in the Light, and that sort of thing. One of those books, she mentions seeing a New Mexico healer who did past life therapy on her. And after I read the book, I thought, ooh, I need to do this. And so I called them, and they ended up saying, where are you calling from? And I said, Germany. And they said, oh, we've got an institute in France, and you could go there for sessions if you want. So that began part of my healing journey, which was clearing, first of all, those wounds that were most needing to come up. So it was all guided by the higher self. But also a second set of sessions about clearing parental wounds, because betrayal wounds, that sort of thing, often start out early on in life. So I went for the 2 sets of 4 sessions each of past life work. And that was the beginning of receiving healing. And it was really powerful and helpful. And I had got to know the owners of the hotel where I stayed, which was a French country inn. And while I was doing my sessions, and I went back to Germany afterwards. And a couple of months later, I got a call from the husband who said, my wife and I are breaking up. How would you like to help her run the hotel? Yeah, it's this 12th century French country inn. And I had just turned 40, and it was like midlife crisis and all this. And my heart just said, yes. That's when I quit my engineering job and went to France. And then I took over the husband's role as the coordinator for the Light Institute in France while helping his wife run the hotel. And so I got family rate on past life work. And so I went in for it. And they have so many different types of past life, different themes and things. So I just went for it. Anytime a facilitator was free, I got my sessions. And so I did a huge amount of past life work, clearing a lot of karma and exploring inner feminine, inner masculine, and all of these things. And then the director of the Light Institute in Europe said to me, I had a session with her, and she said, I think you'd be a good facilitator. Would you be interested in training to become a past life facilitator? And again, I said yes. And so that started me on the healer path. It's just one thing after, it's like spirit was just sending me the right people, even perfect strangers, to guide me gently on my path. Because I say, put me on my path. I had no idea which way to turn. So I didn't need to know. Spirit was guiding me each step of the way. And then I did take training with her, and then I took advanced training. And in the advanced training course, I met a woman who was studying with Barbara Brennan at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. And that's, for those who don't know, that's a 4-year healership program. And not only do they teach you about the energy anatomy and how to work with healing, different aspects, but also they teach us in great detail about the evolution of consciousness from in the womb to adulthood, and how we develop and how wounds develop at different stages of healing. So there was a really powerful psychological background to it, as well as understanding how energy works and using how to apply it. That was incredibly life transforming. And that was 30 years ago. And so I had eventually created a healing practice. And now what I did for many years, once I moved back to Canada, I couldn't really support myself yet with my healing practice. And so I used my technical skills from engineering to support myself doing technical training and documentation and that sort of thing, which paid me well enough that I could afford all the expensive training. And so I had a double life. I had basically still the engineer mind, but we're doing things in a more corporate environment. And then on the weekends, I had my healing practice. And there I was putting on the divine feminine, the healer, the intuitive side. And so and these two parts never met. So there was like Clark Kent by mild-mannered reporter by day and Superman by night. So eventually I ended up working with a friend who was also an energy healer. We were chatting one day, and one of the things we work with our clients is we also teach them skills, energy skills that they can use in their daily life to deal with upsets and other people in relationship, and just to charge themselves and get themselves back into a balance. And we would explain it to them in part of the session. And she said, and our clients are coming back to us to say, or our clients are coming back to me and say, can you write that down? I forgot. And she said, yeah, that's happening to me too. And we said, let's write a book. And so we did. And the interesting thing was she had never written before. I had done by then about 20 years of technical writing, instructional design, And I was actually creating books, user guides, but for technical subjects. And I thought, this is a user guide for energy. Let's do that. So I was quite confident in writing and actually producing a book, but she didn't. But nevertheless, she was very confident and competent in her skills. And so we joined forces and wrote this book, which we published back in 2009. And in the process of writing it down, now I was writing a how-to book, but based on what I love rather than somebody else's agenda. And so the two came together, the feminine and the masculine parts came together to collaborate on this project.
That is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You are just a wealth of knowledge and information. My last question for you today is, if someone's listening who feels completely unloved, unworthy, no purpose, like you and I felt years ago, overwhelmed, disconnected, what is the one thing you want them to remember from this conversation?
Well, it may seem hard to believe, but you are loved, infinitely loved. And the other little piece to that is all the things that you think is bad or flawed in you are just places of becoming. And that when seen from eternity, they're just future gifts and abilities that are just starting out. And as beginners, we're not very good. So have faith that who you really are is also eternal and is eternally loved. And what you're going through right now is a challenge designed to grow you into who you really are. And just embrace that. Look for the growth, the nuggets of growth that are available to you.
I agree wholeheartedly. And it has been an honor to interview you today and to get to know you a little bit. And I really hope this is not the end, because you are amazing. If anybody out there listening would like to contact Gail, her links are below this recording. I thank you all, Gail. I thank you. I honor you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
As someone who knows what that felt like and can feel it in my heart, how you felt. I honor you.
Thank you.
And I thank you for choosing. You made a choice. The divine led you here to be on the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast with Sacred You.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. So everyone, please, this woman is a wealth of knowledge and information. She is amazing. Please check out her links that are below. And that concludes this week's Pathways to Wellbeing with Sacred You. I, your host, Tywanah Thunderbird Rising. We'll see you next time. Thank you. And thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today's episode of the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast, I would like to thank Gail Behrend for such an interesting and thought-provoking conversation. Gail reminds us that even in our darkest moments, when we feel unloved or unworthy, we are in fact infinitely loved, and every perceived flaw is simply a space of becoming. If you would like to explore Gail's work further, be sure to check out her energy healing teachings and resources, including her book on practical energy techniques. You will find all the details in the links below. And at Sacred You, we are committed to creating a space where women from all over the world can support, uplift, and empower each other. Visit our website and check out all our upcoming workshops, events, community offerings, and our archetype quiz. We are at www.sacredu, that is the letter U, .love. And as always, If this episode spoke to you, please subscribe to our podcast, share it with a friend, or leave us a review. As Gail shared, healing begins the moment we reconnect with the light within ourselves. The journey to wholeness is not about fixing what is broken. It is about remembering who you truly are. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep walking your pathway to well-being. From our heart to yours, thank you.